All right. Hello, everybody. And thank you so much for joining us today. I have Tion with me here, and we're going to get into content and we're going to get started in just a tick. Just a few quick admin things before we jump in. This webinar is being set up on an awesome piece of software that we've decided to start using. The really cool thing is just below this video, there's a box where you can actually ask questions because we're going to be having very medical based questions. This particular question box that you have underneath is going to actually go back to us in a private email. Okay. So we want to answer all the questions that you have. Just know that it's going to come back to us via email, and we will get back to you either via email or text message. Okay. And if what you're asking is a really big thing, we do offer a free introductory consultation. If you know right now you want to go ahead and have one of those, or throughout the presentation you decide you would just rather jump and talk to us, that is totally fine. Just underneath this, in that questions box, just enter your phone number there and let us know that you want to talk to us individually, and we are happy to do that. Okay. So like I said, we're going to go through lots of things. We are going to answer questions privately because this is some pretty individualized information we're going to talk about. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So thanks so much for being here. Obviously, we're going to talk about two really big things today. I've been desperate to go deeper on fat and why people are gaining weight, okay? And why women specifically are gaining weight. So a lot of women look at men, and I'm one of those people that I've struggled with weight a lot, really hard. I couldn't shift weight. And I have really wanted to figure out why that is. So we're going to talk about why, if you're having a hard time gaining, if you're having a hard time losing weight, and and you have heavy fat, or you just find you're gaining, and you're not changing your diet, you're not changing your exercise, and you're not doing anything different than you ever have, you're just more tired and you keep getting fatter, and the doctor's telling you that you just need to eat less, then you are definitely in the right place today, because we're going to help you understand why that is and what is missing. Okay. So most people are in fat storage mode. Okay. And we're going to talk a lot about the hormones that affect fat, that create fat storage versus fat burning. So we're going to talk about how to go from fat storage to fat burning so you can master your metabolic control center and get your fat burning hormones on. So you're going to see this picture, and I like to use this. I know it's a little bit silly because it's a graphic, but pretty much this is what, your 25 to 32-year-old woman looks like, really nice and curvy, looking really good. And then as they get older, and a lot of women can relate to this, and I can relate to this. I remember seeing my great grandmother, and this is what she used to look like. And it's so common that as women get older and older and older, they get more, almost like a square. Okay. So a lot of the reason that this happens is largely due to our female hormones, between our reproductive hormone changes and our metabolic hormone changes. And you've really got to master how to keep your body in the right hormone levels so that you can keep your beautiful physique and not end up like this post-menopause. Okay. So just a little bit about our clinic, and then I'm going to let Tion talk because she knows way more about all of this than I do, and she gets to see it all the time, and she works with all of our awesome practitioners. So our clinic is the Naturopathy Clinic. So we have a combination of naturopathic practitioners, naturopathic doctors, endocrinologists. We do a lot of functional pathology, gastrointestinal pathology, and we've actually brought in a team of incredible medical nutritionists who are metabolically bound, and they focus 100% on the female hormones and metabolism and reproductive hormones. And they have this awesome protocol that they have helped us build, and they are executing just on weight loss. So that's a new addition we're very excited about. And we have clinics across Australia, New Zealand, and the US. Just a little bit about Tion and why you should listen to her and why she's so awesome and why I've asked her to come and do this with us today is she's actually kicked her Hashimoto's into remission. She is a mom, even being told it would be very difficult because of her Hashimoto's. She's trained over 120 naturopaths. She's been mentored by doctors like Dr. David Brownstein, Daryl Turner, and the Autism Clinic. A lot of our moms, including me, have kids who have challenges. So we often have kids that my son is ADHD, and we have lots of other parents that have ADHD, ADD, and autistic kids. And a lot of this connects to the hormones. And she knows all about functional medicine. She's a functional medicine practitioner, naturopathic and medical herbalist, and a nutritionist. And she specializes in bacterial and gut treatment combined with hormone treatment as it pertains to thyroid conditions, insulin resistance, autoimmune conditions, and a whole slew of other things, as well as children's support. So, Tion, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's jump in. So tell us about, can you just kind of explain metabolic hormones? Because a lot of people here, probably just from the content we've shared so far, or what they may watch on YouTube or wherever else they might read their content, they might just think that the only metabolic hormone they've ever heard of is thyroid hormones. So can you go a little bit deeper on the different metabolic hormones that are responsible for our weight gain or weight loss?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad we're doing this webinar today because like Carrie said, we specialize in female repro. We see a lot of female reproductive conditions, whether that's PCOS, endometriosis, thyroid, insulin resistance, etc. Now, they're all very different conditions in their characteristics, but one thing that binds all of them together is the weight. And it's something that a lot of patients come to us. It's the biggest, can potentially be the biggest driving force that brings them to us in the first place. And their number one main goal is to lose the weight. And it's very, very hard to lose weight when you do have those underlying metabolic dysfunction issues going on, whether it's a thyroid issue or your female reproductive hormones are out of balance, or there's insulin issues, or there's gut issues. And what we're always told is to eat less and exercise more and maybe take a medication to lose weight potentially. And unless we actually fix the underlying cause, nothing is going to work properly. So what I would really like to go really deeply in today is the certain hormones such as the thyroid, insulin, and reproductive hormones. So, and we've got here thyroid. There are actually 7 thyroid hormones. It's usually only one thyroid hormone that's tested. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Human growth hormone, leptin. So leptin is a satiety hormone. It tells our brain that we're full and we don't need to keep eating. So we quite often see leptin resistance or imbalances with that satiety hormone. Then we've got insulin, glucagon, and incretin. So these are very much responsible for the metabolism and the balance of sugars and carbohydrates. Some of these hormones as well are stimulated from the gut microbiome. So there's a very strong connection and correlation with the microbes and the bacteria in our gut. So let's just go a little bit deeper in all of these hormones. So first and foremost, I would really like to talk about not insulin resistance, estrogen dominance. So estrogen dominance is very, very common in women. We see it all the time. Estrogen actually stores in fat tissue. If estrogen is elevated, it makes fat tissue breakdown very difficult. So we could be eating the right foods, we could be exercising enough, and if there is really high insulin that's stored in our fat tissue, it's going to be hard to break down. Other symptoms of estrogen include period pain. Sore and tender breasts is the number one main symptom of high levels of estrogen, and it can also cause moodiness, anxiety, snappiness, and changes in our mood before our menstrual cycle. and menstrual clotting. So quite often, estrogen dominance sort of starts around the late 30s and heading up to perimenopausal years, and this is one of the reasons why it can be a little bit harder to lose weight, and weight can be harder to lose weight from the 30s or late 30s into the 40s. My favorite topic, talking about thyroid. Like Carrie said, I've personally been through thyroid issues myself, and I really, really do understand the debilitating symptoms, but also the lack of control that one would feel over their body when it does come to issues with our thyroid, whether that's an autoimmune condition or whether that's simply an underactive thyroid. It just feels like there's a complete lack of control. That's what's going on with our body. So just to explain the function of the thyroid. So the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland that sits in our neck. Up in our pituitary gland, which is a gland in our brain, that is the gland that produces TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone. This is the only hormone that is tested, and unless that is out of balance, no other thyroid hormones are tested. There are actually 7 thyroid hormones, and 80% of patients with a thyroid condition have a perfect TSH. So when we look, TSH is very important. It's very important to look at and take that into consideration, but it is not the full story. So it's really important we are looking at the symptoms as well as the rest of the thyroid hormones. So the main symptoms of an underactive thyroid include fatigue, weight gain, can't think properly, can't get words off the tip of our mouth, feeling forgetful, can't think straight, exhaustion, changes in our menstrual cycle, and changes in our sleep as well. Other symptoms include feeling more so, if it's not an autoimmune condition, just simply an underactive thyroid, feeling more so cold, dry hair, dry skin, hair fall, things like that. If we think about, putting it simply, the thyroid is responsible for the controlling the speed of every single metabolic pathway in our body. So we have hundreds and hundreds of metabolic pathways, and the speed is responsible for the speed of the thyroid. Hence why we gain weight, because it controls our metabolism, we feel exhausted, our menstrual cycles are disrupted, our hair falls out because it's necessary for the strength of our follicles. Yeah, so that's talking about thyroid. That is a big one, and also correlated to thyroid is adrenal stress. We're not going to so much talk about cortisol and the adrenal hormones today, but there's a strong correlation between the connection between the stress response, the cortisol, and those stress hormones, and thyroid. Now, insulin resistance is a big one. So insulin resistance will potentially lead into diabetes. So how insulin works is when we eat sugar or carbohydrates, our pancreas secretes insulin. And this is responsible for the metabolism. So insulin will bind to carbohydrate molecules, and it will insert those carbohydrate molecules into the cell to be used as energy and to be used in those metabolic pathways. Where we have insulin resistance, to put it simply, basically the cells are already too full of sugar. So insulin binds to a carbohydrate molecule, and it can't get inside the cell to be burnt. So what happens is literally a layer of fat wraps around that carbohydrate molecule, and it stores predominantly around the middle for later use. So that's why when we see insulin resistance or diabetes, predominantly the most amount of fat will be around the midsection. Insulin is also very much correlated with our reproductive hormones and our androgens, and it does have quite a strong androgenic effect. So that's why a lot of people with insulin resistance or diabetes start to experience skin tags, hyperpigmentation around the creases of the body, around the neck, between the legs, under the arms, etc. That darker skin look. Not in every case, but in a lot of the cases. Interestingly, when anything insulin under 60 IU, there's different reference rate. There's different ways to measure that, but when we're looking at the IU per liter measurement, insulin under 60 is normal. That's where we want things. Anything over 150 is pre-diabetes. So if you're in the middle, you're sent home and you're told, oh, you're fine, it's nothing to worry about. Come back when you're feeling worse and you'll probably be diagnosed with pre-diabetes or diabetes. There's no treatment, you're just sent home and told that nothing is wrong with you. I can't hear you, Carrie, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I went on mute in case I made noise to take from you. Thank you for telling me that. The crazy thing is with insulin, a lot of the time it's not ever tested by the doctors. So they're testing for your blood sugar levels. They test for your fasting glucose, and they sometimes test for your fructose, but they're not actually testing the insulin. So a lot of women find out that they have prediabetes only because of their blood sugar reading when they get their normal bloods ran, not based on their insulin. So there's almost little to no warning. And women have just keep going back every year talking about the fact that they're just gaining weight, and they can't lose weight. And they're often told to just, eat less food. And there was a study that just came out. Literally, 2022 has been like the year of the doctors actually getting menopause studies in their hands. It's been good. But one of the studies that just came out, which the doctors hopefully will get their hands on, and it'll be a part of the medical actual curriculum, but we're probably 15 to 20 years away from them actually accepting this, is only 1 in 20 people who are insulin resistant actually have insulin resistance because of weight related issues. So like if they're overweight, and a lot of the doctors will say, oh, they just assume, well, if you're overweight, of course you have insulin resistance because weight gain causes insulin resistance, when in actuality, insulin resistance only 20% of the time is actually caused by weight gain, right? So like sedentary lifestyles or just binge eating, that's only 20% of the why 20% of the people get insulin resistance, which is what we're about to talk about next. And this is why I really wanted T on here today, because when women turn 38 years or older, especially that 38 mark, right? What ends up happening is as that estrogen goes high, and estrogen stores fat, insulin also stores fat, and then you have a thyroid slowing, then you start to have the raising estrogen and your progesterone starts lowering with perimenopause, which we'll talk about, which I've asked Tion to explain more about in just a second. Insulin is often the filler. And so a lot of women right now, we hear it all the time. I can't lose weight. Doesn't matter what I do. Yesterday, I talked to somebody who was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. It's been 15 years and she's put on 25 kilos. She doesn't do she eats less, she exercises more, and she just keeps getting fatter. And she was a 6 to 8 when she was 45, and now she's a 16 to 18, right? And that's a huge change. And her breasts are big. She's got a lot of this combination sort of stuff going on in addition to her Hashimoto's diagnosis, and she's taking thyroid medication, but she still isn't losing the weight. So I wanted to bring insulin in because both thyroid and insulin are a big reason for the weight gain. And a lot of women that are having a hard time losing weight, it has got very little to nothing to do with what is actually coming in and out. It has a lot more to do with actually getting your hormones regulated, so much so that they're now putting studies out saying only 20% of the weight problem from an insulin perspective is because you're just binge eating, right? So that kind of leads us to our next thing. I wanted you to talk about Carol because Carol's a really good case study because she had insane insulin resistance. So can you talk about what it was like when she arrived, and then we'll keep talking a little bit more about insulin.
Yeah, so Carol had come to me essentially at the end of her tether. She had seen lots of doctors, lots of other practitioners. She had done every diet, gym memberships, etc. She had gained so much weight after she had her boys, and her boys are now teenagers. So that was 15 to 20 years ago. Um, she was about 100 kilos. She was absolutely fatigued. She had a lot of digestive issues, constipation, diarrhea. Um, she had the signs and the symptoms of high levels of estrogen. And she had never ever been. She brought in all of her standard pathology that the doctor had done, and everything was straight down the line, absolutely perfect. She had never had ever that she could find on her records her insulin levels tested, her reproductive hormones were never tested properly. That she was prescribed Nexium, which is an antacid for her reflux, and she was just told to eat less and exercise more. This poor lady had a pretty good diet. She was exercising frequently. There was not a lot that I could comment about her diet. She was pretty good. There was definitely a lot of underlying things that we had to look into, underlying imbalances as to the causation of this. So what happens and what I'm looking for, and this is and Carrie put it really nicely before about how everything is connected. It might feel like and sound like we're segregating, the thyroid and the insulin and the estrogen and the gut microbiome, but everything is so strongly correlated with each other. But when I am looking at more so whether it's a thyroid or blood sugar, insulin, what I'm looking for is the patterns in the energy. So I went to a seminar. I heard someone coin the term zone of misery, and I thought it just really encapsulated the symptoms really well. So, and I've used this term ever since. So we can all understand the zone of misery. It's when we walk into a room and we forget why we walk in there, or we might be talking to someone who we've known our whole lives and we can't for the life of us remember their name, or we can't get like a really simple word off the tip of our tongue, something really, really obvious. So what tends to happen is we go into that zone of misery, our energy levels crash out, we feel super forgetful. And so what we do as natural human instincts is we are reaching for the sugars, the carbohydrates, or the stimulants to kickstart our brain outside of that zone of misery. And then this gives us an insulin spike, a blood sugar level spike, we feel better again, and then everything crashes again. And then we just end up in this yo-yo of reaching for those sugars or those carbohydrates, and then our energy levels are all over the place, weight goes on around the middle, and then essentially the cycle repeats. So that's one way we can look at blood sugar, insulin imbalances. So just briefly touching on not menopause, thyropause. So perimenopausally, it's only natural for how do I put this? So thyroid there's a very high diagnosis rate of thyroid issues that happen perimenopausally, or between the ages of about 38 to 48 or 50. Historically, menopausally, women slow down. That's when they start, looking after their grandkids, being at home, cleaning, looking after the rest of the family. Today, this is when women are at the peak of their career. They're go, 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 go. They're getting promotions, and we're not historically listening to our body. So our adrenal hormones and our stress hormones become quite imbalanced. It greatly affects the thyroid and our insulin, and this is where thyropause comes about. So this is where our thyroid hormones are greatly affected perimenopausally. There's low progesterone, there's high levels of estrogen, our libido goes out the window, we are fatigued, gain a lot of weight, and insulin levels go up.
Yes. And what it ends up happening, and this is kind of the way I like to explain it, so I'm going to kind of break it down a little simpler. No, that was perfect, by the way.
Sorry.
Is I like, because I do all the research, so sometimes I'm like, I try and find it in the most common sense way possible. Anyways, in perimenopause, when your estrogen starts going up, estrogen's a fat storage hormone, and then your progesterone drops when that adrenal kickoff starts, because your body's in a state of stress, regardless of the fact that you're driving 100 kilometers an hour on the city suburb straight just to get from one place to the next to get your kid to soccer on time, after being up since 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to get all your exercise in, kids to school, go to work, be the best at work. All of that's happening. Even if that does increase your cortisol, which it might, your body naturally goes into a state of stress because of the disparagement between the estrogen and the progesterone. And progesterone is like a Yoda hormone. It's very soothing. It's very calming. It feels really good to the body, and your body gets addicted to it. So when you lose the calming hormone and your estrogen starts really going up, and your estrogen is quite inflammatory and loud and wild, and that's why, you always hear about estrogen, is because it's like the rapid crazy hormone, and progesterone calms the estrogen down. So even if you weren't crazy, and even if you weren't working full time and trying to be super mom or superwoman, just the perimenopausal changes alone causes an impact on the nervous system. And insulin thinks its job is to take one for the team and start protecting you. And it goes into the fat storage mode, right? And so when insulin, this is why a lot of women, like, it's written everywhere. You can Google it if you want. Quite funny, but doctors have just told women, sorry, you're in your 40s now, just expect an extra 5 kgs. And it's like, hold a minute. What? Yeah, you should probably lift more weights because that's going to help it not be so fat. And it's like, but how is that even a solution, right? And a lot of the reason for it, again, they don't even acknowledge that insulin is could be a cause for weight gain. It's, you know, 80% of the time weight gain is caused by insulin resistance. And that's very much the case during perimenopause. Your insulin is trying to protect you because of the sort of phantom freak out of the loss of progesterone so rapidly, and the fact that your body's now in a state of stress. And then if you have other things going on at the same time, it can pile even faster on top of it. And that also spurs a slowing thyroid. At some point, your thyroid's like your air traffic controller, controlling your metabolism, making things go faster. So when things start slowing down and then your body goes into fat storage, it's this is why a lot of patients from 38 onwards, and sometimes it can kick on more. Like, we have a lot of patients who go into menopause, have to come off of the copper IUD or the Mirena, and then bam, they'll gain 10, 15, 20 kilos because they no longer have the progesterone anymore, right? And HRT isn't always the best solution, and some go into HRT and it doesn't actually help reduce the weight gain. So that's just a couple other little things to think about. So can you talk about what Carol's test results actually said, so that everybody can see how those symptoms sort of tied in, just briefly, and then we'll go into what do you do to fix this?
Yeah, so we sent her off for some additional standard blood test results, and we did her reproductive hormones via urine, and then we did a gut microbiome test. So it actually came back that she had very high insulin, diagnosed with insulin resistance, hence the storing of the fat predominantly around the middle, and hence the inability to lose weight. She had very high levels of estrogen. Like I said, that's storing in fat tissue and it's preventing the fat breakdown. She had gut dysbiosis and H. pylori. So gut dysbiosis is essentially a fancy word for an imbalance in the bacteria and the microbes in our gut. We've done webinars on this before. We'll probably do another one in the future. The bacteria and the microbes in our gut are absolutely paramount and essential as part of the puzzle for our balance in hormones. So she had an overgrowth of that opportunistic bacteria, and then she had H. pylori. So H. pylori would have been the causation of the reflux, and she was just prescribed a Band-Aid approach. I personally, I love mainstream medicine. I think they're fabulous. I studied medical science myself and I love it and I'm passionate about it. But unfortunately, what happens is patients are always prescribed a Band-Aid approach. And I am the biggest fan of a Band-Aid approach because I want patients to feel better. But no one is ever going to get better and to heal and recover if we're constantly prescribing whether it's medication, whether it's something that you can just get over the counter, or whether it's some fancy herbal, expensive, natural supplement, where no one is ever going to get better until we really understand why the symptoms are happening, why the disease state, if there's a diagnosed disease happening, and we fix the underlying cause. So
talk a little bit about liver.
Yeah. So liver is paramount for the balance of all of our hormones. So 80% of the thyroid hormones are converted in the liver. 20% of the thyroid hormones are converted in the gut. So as you can see, just based on the fact that it is responsible for the conversion of 80% of our thyroid hormones, it's obviously paramount and important to have a healthy functioning liver. Liver is also responsible for the manufacturing, the utilization, and the detoxification of all of our reproductive hormones, in especially estrogen. So when we see estrogen dominance, one of the first point of calls is to look at the function of the liver. And I'm not talking about necessarily some sort of liver disease, whether there's cirrhosis or liver cancer or hepatitis. We're talking about the actual function of the phase 1 and the phase 2 liver detoxification function, not if there's a disease or not a disease, because most people don't have liver disease, but the function is not optimal. So the liver is necessary for the detoxification pathways. When we think of liver, we think of cholesterol, fatty liver, but it's also responsible for energy fluctuation. So when we're looking at energy, we look at two different areas in our body. If someone's energy is flatlined, they're completely stable but low throughout the whole day, we're thinking adrenals. If your energy levels are fluctuating throughout the whole entire day, we're thinking liver. Liver is also responsible for blood sugar regulation. Headaches and migraines sit in the health of the liver, and mood changes and hormonal changes, obviously, because they are responsible for the detoxification of hormones. So liver is a very key organ that we need to love and protect and take care of for so many different systems in our body.
And you want to be careful because a lot of people go quite quickly, like, oh yeah, I'll just do a liver detox, or or they just go to the liver. And for me, I think the like, as a patient and as somebody who's like really had chronic weight gain, I found like dealing with the liver was one of the first things that we did. And I lost a little bit of weight. Like I lost, a few kilos, but I was very overweight. Okay. And then it stopped. The weight loss stopped. And it wasn't until the third month. And then I literally dropped 10 kilos like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was way beyond the liver. So I just want to mention it because we do, liver is obviously a part of actually clearing hormones. But if your hormones are backed up, and if you've got chronic insulin resistance or slowing thyroid, that doesn't actually deal with, getting the liver pumping is good, but you want to make sure you deal with the whole body. Okay. So So I'm going to go quite quickly through a lot of this, and then I'll ask Tion some questions along the way, just so y'all have a understanding of how we work. If you have questions, now is a really good time to be asking questions. Use that questions box. If you want to just jump on a call and you're busy and you've run out of time for the day, put in your telephone number, and we can organize an introductory consultation with you. We understand everybody's busy, okay? So what really makes our clinic different and so effective versus doctors or other practitioners? The big thing is we work we do like look we can work with patients who've had diagnosed conditions. We work with a lot of autoimmune patients. We work with thyroid patients, lots of thyroid patients. We have patients with diabetes, all kinds of issues, okay? We really focus on treating the symptoms. We look a lot deeper at your blood. So we have a whole program that just uses Medicare blood work and focuses on weight loss as it comes through your Medicare blood work, right? And this is something much deeper than you would ever get from a doctor, okay? We do work with your doctor. We never work against your doctor. And the medical system is really great for life-threatening conditions, which when they do your bloods, they're looking at, is your thyroid going to kill you today or not, right? And is your insulin, your diabetes going to kill you today or not, right? And that's why they're not looking at, is your insulin above the 60 range or, below the 150, are you going to die? No, not today. Not today. You won't die today, but you mightn't be very happy. And that's really where we pop in. Okay. So your treatment process with our clinic, the first step is really about symptoms and like symptomatic relief, because your symptoms are telling us what's actually going on. The second stage is really about pathology and corrective treatment. So, like Tion referenced a moment ago about the Carol who was taking an antacid, right? And that was her sort of fix for her discomfort, okay? But there's always a good way to do symptomatic fixes. But for us, we really want to actually correct the problem and get you to a point where you have long-term restorative care, right? And like a really good example of this is like we have patients who've come to see us and they had systemic inflammation and weight gain when they came to see us during perimenopause. Now they're in their 50s and 60s and they're, walking 17 Ks a day. They're planting gardens. They're like very happy. One of them went to the doctor and her knee is bone on bone. And the doctor's like, "Oh my God, you must be so miserable." And she's like, "Actually, I'm really not. I just need to know why I can't bend my knee when I walk down the stairs." And he's like, "Any other patient other than you would be just livid with the amount of pain that they're in." And she's like, "I don't have to get that because we had actually helped work through all those other inflammatory markers that were related to her not being able to lose weight, right?" So I share that because our goal for all of our patients is to get you to the point where in the long term, you have a really great life and you get to keep walking and you get to play with your grandkids. And it's really about you being able to manage your body, and learning from the treatment and getting corrective support, right? So for Carol, her journey, after 6 months, she's losing an average of a kilo a fortnight. Her bloating is gone. Her periods are normal. Her moods are normal. Her energy is restored. She's sleeping through the night and her hormones are in optimal reference ranges now. So this is someone for 15 years couldn't lose any weight, right? So we were able to really identify that insulin, a big gap, right? So like that's a really big deal. Insulin and estrogen, if not identified and they're not clearing properly and not within those healthy ranges, makes a very big difference. Okay. So she's obviously quite happy with that. So how do we do it? So first we work, like I said a second ago, symptomatically, and then really going into the corrective work. Okay. And our symptom first treatment is really focused on what we call our initial consultation. It's an hour long. There's a link just below our webinar here that you can, if you just want to book right in and get started, you can do that. It's just below this video. It's normally $197, and today we're doing for just $167. So because you've taken the time to actually learn about our approach, you can actually get a special offer for $30 off for $167. And if you want to book in at any time, I'll leave it on the screen for the next few PowerPoints we go through. So in this symptom care with a treatment plan, we spend a full hour with you really going through your symptoms and identifying what are the key nutrients or what are the key hormones that we need to start supporting so that your body starts to calm down. A lot of our patients, especially with weight gain, and this was me too, have a lot of fluid retention, right? So one of the things we do if we're talking to you on Zoom is we look at your face, we look at your eyes, we look at your skin, we're looking at everything to see what's going on. And a lot, especially thyroid patients, are really, their faces get really, like my face was really puffy. And just the puffiness, the fatigue, other things other than just the weight gain, we can find so much as to what's going on and to start supporting your hormones to start moving in the right direction and really get clear on what's it going to take for you to get better. Okay. So if it's weight gain you want or weight loss that you would probably want weight loss, not weight gain. Or if it's, you want to deal with some of the other issues that you're having, then we really get clear on that and we put together a full plan and we get you started on a treatment so that you can actually start feeling better. Okay. And that's that first initial consultation. A big reason why we get results versus other practitioners or doctors or the rest of it is because we're doing a whole body approach. We are using pathology to figure out what is going on. We are all very well trained to be able to address things from a symptomatic perspective, but we really like to look at pathology to see what we might be missing or to be able to get exact on our reference ranges. We really work on restoring optimal hormone function and getting your metabolic function on so that you actually go from that fat storage to where you're actually burning fat and your body is doing the right things to keep burning fat. Even after you leave, your body is still working metabolically as it should. Okay. Stage 2 is really about pathology and corrective treatment. Okay. So that first appointment's really about getting clear on what the symptoms are, getting you a bit of relief, and getting clear on what is the plan that we need to follow to get you to the point where you can lose the weight, where you can cut back on the muscle aches, the muscle pains, hot flushes, whatever it is that might be going on for you. And we use pathology at that next stage to figure it out. A lot of times most of the time we can use Medicare, which is great because that saves you a lot of money. If you don't want to go back and forth to the doctor, then we can also order bloods for you. We can get them pretty affordably. And then from there, it's really about developing a corrective treatment approach. If you're the kind of person who just wants a quick fix, we're probably not the right clinic for you, if I'm really honest. We will never load you up. You'll never leave with $800 worth of supplements. That's just not how we work. We give you what you need based on what's coming through. You'll have a handful of supplements, but I've never seen a bill that big. Have you ever prescribed that many? I mean, I know you at one point when you first started Tion, not as a naturopath, but seeing a naturopath, I know you left with a big, expensive $600 bill at like 23, right?
18 and my naturopath sent me home with $700 worth of supplements. Yeah. No, we're not heavy-handed with supplements. We will always give you what is necessary, but we're not.
Yeah. And we use food as medicine, which is probably one of the best parts, is if you're in a position where you're very sensitive, we also use food as medicine, but we use pathology to tell us what's going on. If you wanted to do something like a functional test, I put up here so you can see the difference. And the doctor would only maybe test TSH, possibly your free T3 and your free T4. But if we were to do like a big full pathology test, these are the 7 different thyroid hormones that we mentioned just a second ago, just so you can kind of see the difference in if we were to do something more for something like thyroid. Okay. And stage 3 is really about turning your metabolism on and getting your fat burning organs on. So once we get you to a point where your body has what it needs to be able to support it, the hormones working right, getting your liver working, getting your body working, Then it's about regulating metabolism so that you actually start burning fat, and so that you're actually, digesting your food, your body's working the way it should be working, and turning your fat burning system on, okay, and really boosting that metabolism. That's why I say around that sort of second, third month, it's very common in our process for us. Like, we have a patient who in her third month of treatment lost 10 kilos in a month, which is crazy. But she went through the first phase and the second phase, and then she had a big drop. And to date, she's about 5 months into treatment, and she has lost 16 kilos, which is fabulous because she hasn't been able to lose any weight, and she's in her 50s. So just because you're old doesn't mean you have to be fat, right? And then the last and final stage is really to have a long-term nutritional plan. You shouldn't need to take supplements. You shouldn't need Band-Aids forever. You should be able to have a nutritional plan that works based on what your body is saying it needs. And this is why we use pathology, because it tells us what are your different reference ranges. If your body's not absorbing nutrients, what do you need to feed it with specifically? And even we have when we read your bloods, especially our awesome nutritionist that I mentioned a little while ago, they literally get an entire blood report based on just your standard Medicare blood work. And that comes back with the types of foods that you should be eating in your diet. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And this is the kind of thing that is really missing from a lot of other, practitioners and doctors, unfortunately. And this is the part where we find our patients are very empowered and able to maintain it because we're very clear on what they need, right? So just a couple of examples. We have a patient who's come to us. She had bacteria driving her insulin resistance. She was suffering for 15 years before she came to us. We have other patients who have had adrenal fatigue for 3 years, and they just went round and round in circles, didn't really get any there. Nobody had actually dealt with their gut issues. We have other patients who were taking bioidentical hormones for 5 to 10 years. They were now in post-menopause. Bioidentical hormones are about, $150 a month. They're quite expensive. And they weren't working, and they were still gaining weight, and they were starting to have all kinds of other issues until they came to see us, and we actually got things working. We had another patient who had Graves', and she had seen another clinic for 3 years, every single month, spent thousands of dollars, and nobody was addressing everything else that was going on for her. And even with Graves', she was gaining weight, which is quite unusual to do when one has Graves'. And we were able to really help her get back on track. So how much does all this cost? If you were to go the medical route, you could be having to take insulin or take HRT or Zoloft for antidepressants every month. They do free reference ranges, so that's great for your pathology, but there's no long-term approach. It's really about, is this going to kill you or not? And that's great. If we get hit by cars, believe me, the first place we want to go is the doctor, right? Because we don't want to die of a limb not being fixed, right? And that's really what they're there for, right? Alternative solutions, when you compare us to other clinics, often that initial consultation for a symptomatic approach is between $500 and $800. Pathology, they typically request additional expensive functional pathology. Often it can be anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 just for the pathology. Typically they stop there, and there's no real program break or fix. It's just, okay, come back when you have more symptoms, and they just send you back on your way. Whereas our clinic, the first appointment is $167. We put together a really comprehensive treatment plan, and we figure out what needs to actually get addressed. Often with pathology, we can use Medicare, which is free. If we do see that you need additional pathology, specifically for like weight gain, if there's a weight issue, which I'm assuming most of you here, it can be up to $300 if we had to go and order different types of tests for you. Often we can do a lot with a referral letter through Medicare, so that doesn't cost you. And really long term, so we're talking like all up for everything to get you to the point where you're restored and you can maintain it. And that's with that awesome nutritional plan, going through pathology, going through all of the stages, can be between $1,300 and $2,500 for our actual long-term restorative program. And it's over the course of about 3 up to 12 months if it was a more expensive program. Okay. We like to be really transparent about money so that there's no surprises. That's why we share it with you. Okay. So doctors, if you go to a doctor, you could be on a lifetime of pharmaceuticals, surgeries, hysterectomy, maybe not have a clear plan. Just over the course of 5 years, if you're taking insulin or bioidentical hormones, it could be more than one drug. You're looking at about $1,800. Whereas if you come to us, you get a really clear plan. If nothing else, you just do that first initial consultation, $167, and try it for yourself. See how different it is working with us and what kind of answers you get. So here's just a few things that our patients have said. I've been on my new journey with you all for 9 weeks and feel the best I ever have. Life-changing, 3 months now, and I'm pain-free, and the weight is starting to come off. Energy levels are returning. I've been attending this clinic for nearly years, and the reason is simple: the very personal attention and real results from management of allergies, recuperation, glandular fever, postmenopause. There's a vast reservoir experience here. Carol's journey after 6 months, like we said a second ago, she's losing an average of 1 kilo a fortnight. Her bloating's gone, her periods are normal, moods are normal, her energy's restored, she's sleeping through the night, and her hormones are all in optimal ranges. So what's the cost of not having energy, not having your mental clarity, not having a full night's sleep, carrying the excess weight, not chasing your grandkids, not being able to walk around and being able to do just what you've really enjoyed doing without having to sit down and take a nap or having to take a break because you're winded or you're breathless or you're exhausted after doing just 1 or 2 basic things, feeling unproductive, being tired? Is it worth $167 to get answers and solutions and to try it for yourself? So I encourage you to organize an initial consultation. If you're not sure and you want to talk to us, we welcome. This is one of the reasons we do these free introductory consultations. It's about 30 minutes on the phone. It's usually with Tion, myself, or one of our other practitioners. So if you would like to schedule that, just put your number in the questions box below and we can get back to you to actually organize that so that you get one of us to do this with you. If you're ready to just jump in, you can actually go to this link just below. It'll bring you to our booking page and you can actually go and book your actual initial consultation straight away. Okay. So I encourage everybody to take the next step, book an initial consultation. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. We're very open and we're very honest, and we prefer our patients to be educated and aware of what they need to be doing and how we're going to work with them before we start. So we welcome any questions and conversations that you have. So Tion, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here. I'm very, very grateful for the time you've given us and all the explaining that you've done.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So thanks so much for your time. We look forward to connecting with you soon, and we'll see you in the near future. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.